Welcome to another edition of the Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac. And today I just wanted to kind of give my thoughts on an update that we recently got in regards to Cavs swing man Max Strus, a guy that we have not seen all season long, a piece that came over to Cleveland during the off season of the 2023-24 period. So I was really ecstatic when we acquired Max Strus back then. I'm still pretty high on what he can bring to the table, but the reality is this: the world has changed around Max Strus in reference to this Cavaliers setup. So much has happened. So many breakouts have occurred, some of them coming at the very position that Max Strus eats minutes up at. But before we get to that, let's just get through the update here. And this is courtesy of my guy, Spencer Davies, over on social media, Twitter, right? Whatever you want to call it. Spencer says, Cavs head coach Kenny Atkinson on Max Strus progressing did a pretty high level workout today. No contact still, but he's starting to ramp up. It's still, yeah, or it's like, don't get too excited, but he's doing a lot more. So that's good news. Man, I cannot read today. Either way, you understand what I'm trying to say here in referencing this. I'm going to read that one more time. Cavs head coach Kenny Atkinson on Max Strus progressing, really did a pretty high level workout today. No contact still, but he's starting to ramp up. It's like, don't get too excited, but he's doing a lot more. So that's good news. So again, this tends to point to the direction of Max Strus progressing in a direction that would indicate that he will eventually suit up for this team this year. The problem is that the playoffs, it's not exactly like that's super far out, right? It is mid-February as of recording this. That leaves the playoffs about 2 months away. One would assume that Max is going to need some time to get back into a basketball shape, and not just basketball shape. He's going to need to get into playoff basketball shape, which is an entirely different animal when you think about how much that requires of you from an energy standpoint, from an intensity standpoint, just from a mobility and movement standpoint out there. Two areas that Max has prided himself on over the duration of his career. So to come into this season knowing that Max is going to miss a substantial portion of time, that's one thing. But to see it be February and he's still not out there, that's crazy to me. So to expect him to come back and to be in playing shape, I think that would just be unfair to place that type of expectation upon him. And so you just really think about the future here and what this could potentially look like for him. Because as I mentioned, the world has changed. I mean, honestly, the landscape in Cleveland has changed in reference to Max Strus. You have seen Jalen Tyson break out and have a phenomenal season in his own right. You have seen Sam Merrill have a phenomenal season. You have seen Naquan Tomlin break out. You have seen Craig Porter Jr. and a number of other Cavaliers really step up in spots where Max would normally get some of those minutes at. And the real question is too, like, what is the future from a contractual standpoint look like for Strus? He's making about $16 million. There was all types of rumors floating around the deadline of the Cavaliers shopping him in an effort to get below the second apron, which has its merits. Obviously, with trying to save as much money as you can. And don't get me wrong, Kobe Altman and Mike Gansey and company, they did that. They shaved over $100 million in potential penalties by moving Lonzo Ball and a number of other names. It's just, at this point in time, $16 million is a lot of money to have for a player that is been out all season long, coinciding with the fact that you have guys that can now contribute in the positions that he plays, the 2 and the 3. And so where does he fit into this? Where does he, from a rotational standpoint, what does that look like? Even when he does come back, you're going to ask for minutes to be to be taken away from somebody else that is probably just as deserving. And at this point in time, like, we're talking about a guy who had been primarily a starter for this Cavaliers team since he came over back during the offseason 2023-24, right? Now, Strus, since he has come over to the Cavaliers, has averages of 11 points, 4.6 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and he has shot 42.6% from the field, which includes 36.4% from three-point range, and he has shot 80.2% from the charity stripe. These aren't elite averages by any stretch of the imagination, but it has been rather consistent. And the one thing you know that you were getting from a Max Strus is you are getting that off ball gravity. You are getting somebody that the defense has to account for. You are getting somebody that can get your bigs involved in the flow of the offense, whether that looks like a Jarrett Allen, Max Strus pick and roll or dribble handoff. There are all types of things that Max Strus brings to the table from an offensive standpoint. And he expands the gravity of basically the entire team around him. He's not obviously a Sam Merrill-esque shooter out there, though he is a volume shooter. But we know that the defense does have to account for his presence. We know that they have to be aware of him, and oftentimes they will chase him around screens, similarly to how they would do with a Sam Merrill. They know that whenever he is spotting up out in the corners or above the break, they have to send somebody out his way in fear of him making them pay for it. And that's the value of a Max Strus, somebody who does so many different things out there that often go unnoticed because you have so much of this offensive talent around him, whether that be a Donovan Mitchell, whether that be a James Harden now, whether that be a Jarrett Allen or Evan Mobley. You have so many of these different pieces out there that often dwarf what he has brought to the table in the past. But that's the thing. That is the past. That is prior to this season. And he's not going to come back at 100%. And he's certainly going to have to earn his role back at this point in time. So I'm in a place right now where I'm wondering what that actually looks like. Because for Strus, I mean, one would have to assume he is giddy and ready to get out there as soon as he can because he has watched this team go through the different stages this year, whether that be trying to work through the funk that Evan Mobley and others had been in from an offensive stagnation standpoint, whether that be trying to see Darius Garland gut it out on the toe injury, whether that be the new additions here and the acquisition of a Dennis Schroeder and a Keon Ellis and a James Harden, whether that be some of the breakouts. I would assume that he is eager to play with these guys. And I can't fault him for that, nor should you, but things are different now. I just don't know what it's going to look like, not just from a minute standpoint, but from a pure role standpoint. I think that he is the caliber of talent and the type of connective piece that you can fit into a rotation no matter where he plays, Cleveland or elsewhere. But I think that considering the wealth of options that you now have in the backcourt and at the three at points, it renders things a lot trickier because you know that Keon Ellis deserves a good amount of minutes. You know that Sam and Jalen have broken out. You know that you're going to have to find minutes for both Dean Wade and Naquan Tomlin at times. It just makes it extremely difficult. And you can't continue to play super undersized, especially once you get to the playoffs. You're going to need some size out there. And that's why I'm a believer of Dean Wade and Naquan factoring in there somewhere. Hell, maybe even Thomas Bryant in specific series and matchups. But it makes it extremely difficult. Who is in the rotation? Who is out of the rotation? That's a problem for Kenny Atkinson and company to try and digest and figure out what works. And maybe it's a plug and play thing. Maybe it's a matchups based thing. Maybe it's this guy does not have it going on tonight. Let's look to go Max's way, or let's shorten the rotation. We're not sure. Let's expand the rotation to 10 or 11. I don't know. There are a lot of different routes and avenues that you can go, but I just don't know when we're going to see this guy. The update again from Spencer makes it seem as if like he's on the right track, and we're probably going to see him sooner rather than later. If I was a betting man, I would say we probably see him in mid-March. I would not expect him to be back before maybe March 15th, just based upon this current status update, but I don't know. Maybe we'll get surprised. As of recording this, it is February 18th. The All Star break ends tomorrow for Cleveland. He will almost certainly not suit up in the month of February, at least in my opinion. But I would be very, very, very excited if he does. The question still remains though, like, what does that actually look like on the court? Which lineups do you play him in, and which lineup combinations do you think Kenny Atkinson will look to make best use of his talents within? Because he's a connector out there. He is one of those guys that you don't have to worry about stagnating the flow of the offense. You don't have to worry about him eating a ton of touches because he is shown to be an impactful player off the ball, and he can get your guys involved out there in the front court. So there's always space for him. The question is, like, who do you cut the minutes from to get there? Because if I'm just going out on a limb here, I would assume that James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Tyson, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, that five-man unit right there is going to play. Dean Wade, you can swap out for Jalen Tyson if you're Kenny Atkinson. If you want to go that route, that's fine with me. But at the very least, I think those six guys will be in. Sam Merrill, that's a non-negotiable. He will factor in there. Dennis Schroeder, that's 8 that he will factor in. Keon Ellis is 9. He will factor in. And this is in no order off the bench, but those are already 9 guys who figure to play. So, like, are you going with Max as your 10th guy? I really don't know. Like, there's so much, and I feel like I'm leaving somebody out here, but there are so many deserving candidates for minutes here in that rotation that it's going to be hard to kind of figure out what direction they want to go in, because you can't play super undersized all the time. And we know that guys are are positionally versatile enough to actually do that. That Dean Wade can play the 3-4 and maybe some small ball 5. God forbid, like, that happens a lot, but that it is within his wheelhouse to do. That Jalen Tyson can play 2-3 and sometimes 4. That you can get players like Naquan Tomlin to play a little bit of 3 and 4. Like, there are a lot of different things you could do, but man, it's going to be difficult. It truly is, because he's a guy that prior to the acquisition of a DeAndre Hunter, he was locked in as that starting 3, right? Because obviously there was no breakout from Jalen Tyson. There was no breakout for a Sam Merrill. And Sam at 6'4", he was never truly going to be a long-term starter or solution there, even in spot duties. So, like, things are just much different now. And I know I keep saying that, but it's just the case. And that is why I believe that they were likely shopping him, because they know, like, hey, $16 million, that's a lot of money. And we don't necessarily have to count on Max at this point. He is more so a luxury than he is somebody that truly needs to be kept. And that's not me saying that they should move him, but that's me looking at this from a unbiased and logical standpoint. Like, you now know you can go to other options and be okay with Strus not being out there. But he adds, like, this is not a player that you wouldn't be able to find minutes for. It's just, where do they come from? And that's where we're at. That being the case, let me hop into the chat real quick before we get out of here. The Real Night King Goat says, Mad Max got to be out till like the second week of next season, most likely. Personally, I don't think it's like that. I think that we probably see him in mid-March. I don't think he will be out all season. I think it would be like utter folly of us to expect him to be ready for playoff basketball right out of the gate, but I do believe that he will be back this year. Gamble the Camel says, I was a little surprised he didn't get traded before the deadline. I kind of was too, just because there were so many rumors out there about them wanting to get under the apron, and it looked like it was trending in that direction because the salaries that they shaved off in Hunter, in Lonzo, and so on and so forth. So it seemed like it was trending that direction, but he's still here, and I'm not mad at that, because again, this is a player that is connective and you can make work. It's just about, where do those minutes come from? He also asked, what do you think his minutes will look like and whose minutes will he take? I think he'll probably be in that, at least out of the gate, 15 to 18 minute zone in terms of minutes. In terms of where those come from, that's tough, man. because I don't want to take any minutes away from Jalen. I certainly don't want to take any minutes away from Sam. So maybe it's a combination of Dennis, Keon, and Dean's minutes, or maybe you pull from the starters. Maybe you take a few from James. Maybe you take a few from Donovan. I don't know. Like I would assume that they'll take a little bit from everybody just to make sure they get Strus on the court. That's possible. You take 2 minutes from every starter and every role player out there. You can find minutes for Strus. It's just about what lineup combinations those come in. The Real Night King says, unless he comes back 15 to 17 points or 3-point percentage up to mid 40s, he might be gone. Sad to say. Yeah, I mean, they could certainly move him in the offseason. I certainly think that is still a large possibility, but I still think you could use him this year for this playoffs. He is still an experienced veteran with playoff experience. J-Bone 1800 says, quiet as kept. Proctor could get minutes in any other situation. I think Tyrese Proctor has a lot to offer. If this team wasn't so stacked at the guard spots, he probably would be a rotational player somewhere in like the 15 to 20-minute range. But this is a title contender right now, and I don't have any problem with Kenny Atkinson giving him the good old DNPCD. But that speaks more to the depth of this team than it is an indictment on Proctor's abilities. The Real Night King says, if we win the big one, would you say this team better than 2016 team? And in a matchups, who you got current or 2016? Personally, I'm probably always going to be more aligned with the 2016 team, because I just don't think that, like, LeBron was so far ahead of anybody else on this team, like right now, like number one player in the world at that point, in my opinion. Obviously, James Harden and Donovan Mitchell are two top 20, top 15 players. You can make an argument that Donovan Mitchell is arguably top 8 right now, maybe even higher than that. James, you can find places ranking him anywhere in between 15 to 25. Evan Mobley is a top 20 player, in my opinion, when he's healthy, and on and so forth. But nobody, in my opinion, comes close to LeBron James that season. Kyrie Irving, I mean, such a special performance in the finals in particular. And then game 7, he hits the biggest shot in Cavaliers history, maybe finals history, considering the magnitude of like what that series looked like to start. It's a, 3-1 comeback. That narrative can't be denied. And then on down, you got Kevin Love, Richard Jefferson, Channing Frye, Amon Shumpert, J.R. Smith, all these big-time role players, Matthew Dellavedova, everybody, Tristan Thompson, let's not forget him. Everybody played their role. But to me, no, I lean 2016. Until this team proves it, I got to go that way. J-Bone says, I guess this is a good problem we have worrying about how to get minutes for a returning player. It is ultimately a good problem. You would rather have too much talent to try and figure out who is in and out rather than not having enough, right? If that makes any sense. So this is still a good problem to have, but it's nevertheless a difficult one, and one that I do not envy Kenny Atkinson for having, because obviously this is why he gets paid the big bucks. I would assume that they will do everything within their power to get him out there, assuming that he is healthy enough to suit up soon. But it's going to take some time, man. It's going to take some time for him to ramp up into basketball shape, because there's a large difference between being in shape and being in basketball shape. The Real Night King says, ain't gonna lie, I miss Matthew. That was my guy. Yeah, Delly, man. He was such the embodiment of heart, energy, hustle, effort out there on a nightly basis. And I think it was the 2016 finals where Delly really stuck out. In particular, it was the 2015 finals where, he had to step up in the starting point guard role when Kyrie went down after game 1, where he did his best, right? We all know the famous, IV story. He was drinking too much coffee. That's what it really boils down to. But Matthew Dellavedova gave it his all in the time that he was here. And I think that he'll always be somebody that is synonymous with the term hustle. Gamble says, what do you think our record over the next 10 games will be? Some tough ones in there. I mean, when you look at the schedule as of right now, they got Brooklyn in Charlotte. Charlotte is a tough team right now. Let's not mince words. Brooklyn, that's a winnable game. So those first two kind of split. OKC, it's going to depend upon whether or not SGA plays. New York, that's a tough one. Milwaukee, that should be winnable, very winnable. That's already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Detroit, that's tough. Brooklyn, again, same rule applies, and then Detroit again, and then you got Boston and Philly. So if I'm looking at this from a 10-game standpoint, I think that they finish no worse than maybe I would say 7-3. 7-3. There are definitely some games that they could lose. Let's just put it that way. But I think that they will end up surprising people and winning one of the tougher ones, one or two of the tougher ones. So I'd say 7-3 at worst. I'm an eternal optimist though, so I'm hoping 10-0. We'll see. 9-1. I don't know. J-Bone says, hey, Mike Breen cheated us in 2016. He never said bang when Kyrie hit the shot. Yeah, I don't know. He had an affinity for Curry, obviously, with that three-point shot. You never really know what calls Mike Breen is going to bring to the table. But, yeah, I agree there. I don't know, guys. I think that's about it for me. I just wanted to hop on here and kind of give my thoughts on this most recent update for Max. I'm hoping that we see him come March. I don't think we'll see him before then. If I was a betting man, I would say maybe around March 15th or so. That gives him enough time to try and ramp up for the playoffs. But I really don't know. I don't know. Time will tell. As always, tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out, I can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you want to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot, send a review to It's Cavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you said invite. If you're still here by chance, do your boy a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber to the It's Cavalier podcast. Do the same thing for Positive Hooper, and go Cavs.